Analysis is a business measurement tool useful for scanning and understanding a market's macro environment before beginning the marketing process. Firms can use this to determine whether a product will do well in the environment. It is divided into four main categories. One is the political, then economical, then social cultural, and then technological.
Political factors are basically to what degree the government intervenes with the economy. Specifically, political factors include areas such as tax policy, labor laws, environmental law, trade restrictions, tariffs, and political stability. Political factors may also include goods and services which the government wants to provide or be provided. These are known as merit goods. And then there are those that the governments wish not to be provided, which are known as the demerit goods. Furthermore, governments have a great influence on the health, education, and infrastructure in a nation. Nigeria is a third world country. Most of its citizens still live under $1 a day, which indicates extreme poverty. There is no such thing as social security like there is in the developed world in Nigeria. Most of its citizens do not even pay their taxes. It is indicated in their laws that each person must pay 27% of their income tax. According to the Nigerian labor laws, a worker must have a contract 3 months after they have started working in a business. However, most workers in Nigeria do not have a contract. Working in Nigeria is a problem because you will have almost no job security. You will not know whether going to work that day will be your last day at your job.
The economic factors are the inflation rates, the interest rates, the economic growth, the unemployment rates, the scale of the workforce, and the labor cost of a nation. These factors have great influence on the decisions that a business may make. For example, according to tradingeconomics.com, the inflation rate of Nigeria in 2013 was about 8%, while according to the inflation rates in 2014 as of July, it rose to 8.5%. This increase may change the decisions the companies have to make in terms of the initial capital they may need to start a project. These social factors include the cultural aspects and include the health consciousness, the population growth rate, the age distribution, career attitudes, and emphasis on safety. Trends in social factors affect the demand for a company's product and how the company operates. For example, an aging population may imply a smaller and less willing workforce, thus increasing the cost of labor. Furthermore, companies may change their various management strategies to adapt to those social trends, such as recruiting older workers. The population of Nigeria has grown exponentially. In 1952, the population was only about 30 million. However, in 2006, the population has risen to a staggering 180 million people. 46% of its population lies within the pre-adolescents. Well, what does this mean for the global market? Pre-adolescents don't have the necessary capital to invest in products such as goods and services that will make the GDP of the country higher. This might be good for the future, because in the future, these pre-adolescents will grow up to move into the working force. And the working force will have a large amount of people, which might boost the economy of Nigeria. Technological factors include technological aspects such as R&D activity, automation, technology incentives, and the rate of technological change. They can determine barrier to entry, minimum efficient production level, and influence outsourcing decisions. Furthermore, technological shifts can affect costs, qualities, and lead to innovation. On the country ranking of innovation, Nigeria has a spot of 110th. Nigeria is not a very technologically advanced nation. It does not have a lot of technological change. Only 26% of its population has access to internet. Technology is the biggest driver of development in these undeveloped countries such as Nigeria. Etisalat, which is a phone company in Nigeria, has invested a huge sum of money into public schools to enable them to buy computers so that the citizens of that school or of those schools can get some basic technology education. But why is all of this necessary? Because in modern times, there are some working Nigerians that still do not know how to use computers. The Nigerian economy is heavily dependent on oil. A large part of their GDP does come from the oil business. Their GDP is an estimated $526 billion per year. And most of this does come from the oil business. Nigeria has the highest amount of proven oil reserves in Africa and is the 10th highest in the whole of the world. Nigeria was proven to have oil in the year 1958. It started off with an average 5,100 barrels per day. By the year 1972, that number had grown exponentially to about 2 million barrels per day. The amount of GDP it earned from the export revenues had risen from 1% to about 75%. There was no stopping the rate at which the Nigerian oil production was growing. By 1972, it had become a major oil producer and the 7th highest oil producer in the world. It had gone from producing 2.1 million barrels per day to producing 2.3 million barrels per day. The first oil producer in the world was Saudi Arabia with an average of 11.2 million barrels per day. In 2012, the numbers had dropped to about 2.14 million barrels per day. Now, where does all this oil go? It's distributed all around the world. 33% goes to the United States, about 3% of it goes to the United Kingdom, and the rest is distributed at different points in the world. About 25 million liters of petrol is used every day by Nigerians, and the numbers are rising. It is expected that it rises every year about 12.8%. Some of this money is stolen. It is estimated that about $5 billion worth of revenue is lost every year. It is taken to some West African countries and also countries in Europe such as Ukraine and Bulgaria and even Singapore. The oil sometimes also gets spilled. It is estimated that there are about 6,800 spills that have occurred between 1976 and 2001. All these oil spills can have tremendous effects on the environment. For example, in the Delta State of Nigeria, it is estimated that about 2 million barrels of oil have spilled. Now, what does it mean for the people of the Delta State? It means that their agricultural output will be reduced because most of their crops will die. This will in turn reduce the amount of revenue that they get. The main problem is that no one wants to take responsibility for all the problems that have been caused in the Delta State. Another problem is that no one wants to provide the funds that are necessary to return the environment back to its original state. Shell, a Nigerian company, emits 39 million tons of carbon dioxide and 30 million tons of methane gas. The pollution that the oil industry has caused has led to 49 premature deaths, about 5,000 respiratory diseases, 120,000 cases of asthma, and 8 causes of breast cancer. There is no doubt that the oil industry does bring a lot of money into Nigeria. 35% of its GDP does come from the oil industry. It also creates a lot of employment for its citizens. 10% of the Nigerian population are employed in the oil industry. The oil in Nigeria can also be considered to be responsible for most of the corruption that happens in Nigeria in modern times. Shell were the first oil company to move to Nigeria in 1937. This gave them the first mover advantage. Because of this, they had many claims on all the lands that were prosperous in oil. This also gives them most of the power in Nigeria. And because they were the first to move, it gives them this strong position ahead of all of their competitors. Nigeria is considered to be going through an economic boom. Its economy grew by 89% from April 5th, 2014 to April 7th, 2014. But it does not explain this trend of unemployment. The unemployment rate seems to be increasing. However, the economy seems to be growing. Previously, I had said that the oil industry had created a lot of jobs for the people of Nigeria. About 10% of its population is employed in the oil industry. However, these jobs are usually the minimum wage jobs, the jobs that are given to the uneducated people. They much prefer to employ the experts to do the higher jobs. That proves that all the revenue that's gained by the oil industry is not even invested in Nigeria. It is invested overseas with all the expatriates and their families. The national poverty line in Nigeria lies at 46%. This means that 46% of its population is living under $1 a day. Now, how is this possible when they are such an oil-rich company? You have to ask yourself these questions. Where does all the money go? Of all the $520 billion that Nigeria gets in GDP, how much of it is actually invested in Nigeria towards the development of the nation? Nigeria does more for the world than the world does for Nigeria. They have made the world so much easier by the amount of oil that they have contributed. And between 1960 and 2013, their lives have become worse while ours have become better. Thank you.